Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Do we have
No
confetti
confetti.
coming
No
down?
confetti. I thought you were on confetti duty.
No, that's not
No?
me.
Okay. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Don't Ask Me Why podcast with your hosts with an S. I'm Reggie. That's Raj. Say hi, Raj.
All right.
All right. All right. I'm glad Raj is speaking in third person. And just how was the holiday? How was the break? How was everything? Was that cool?
Holidays were quiet and
Yeah,
great, which is fine with
yeah,
me. That's fine with
yeah.
me.
Same.
Enjoyed it. Got good gifts, which is the most important thing, and spent a lot of fun time with friends and just had a great time overall. How about you and the family?
Ditto. Same thing. A lot of family, a lot of food. Someone had the nerve to bring some chitlins in the house. That's another story for another day. But
I didn't have any of
oh
that.
man, yeah, you didn't want it either.
Yeah.
Oh my god, had the house smelling like a toilet for the past 72 hours. Gee whiz. Um,
Wait a minute. Did you have extended family coming in?
Absolutely. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, on average, we had at least 40 people in the house. So it's
Wow.
always thick and festive around these parts. So
I know what you mean. I had about 3 people,
oh
so yeah, it was tough.
what was also tough was our picks this past week. We went
Not
we
bad.
went 4-2-1. Now 4-2-1. If you are a mathematician, you'll know that 4-2-1 doesn't add to 6. That actually adds to 7 because we're also including the amazing pick from Ratcliff for that Cardinals upset. I personally didn't believe that would happen, but I mean, I wish he was here to just receive the flowers. But what?
Yeah.
What up?
Oh!
Hey,
Oh, Lord.
time out.
Yeah.
Where'd you come from? That's a security issue. That's a breach of
I want my flowers,
DAMW.
baby. I want my flowers.
All right.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen,
very
welcome
good.
back to Ratcliff Thomas, Coach Ratcliff Thomas. Welcome back, sir. What? Give us a quick breakdown. What I mean, you that wasn't just a whim. That wasn't just out of your back pocket. I think you knew something. You had some insider information. You saw something as a former player. Just give us your thoughts on that. That was remarkable. On top of the fact that your Terrapins did what you said they would do, and they dominated the War Eagle.
So with Maryland, man, I know that Locks, he really locks in, and you give Locks time to prepare for a bowl game. He's a tough out for anybody, right? And you
Yeah.
tag that with I left out with saying Tua wasn't playing, right? But what happens is when a star player doesn't play, it's an opportunity for somebody else. And that kid behind him, I've been watching him all year. And I seen him in practice. I seen him in the spring, and I knew he could play. So it was the perfect opportunity for him. And the boys rallied behind him, and they executed Locke's game plan well, and they did what they supposed to do. Now to the Cardinals, I just felt like Philly hadn't been playing how they're actually one of my favorite teams. So I watched them more than most. And I knew that Kyler Murray
Okay.
is getting help. Like he was like a couple years ago, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, right? So that injury,
Mm-hmm.
derailed him. So now he's back full speed. It's hard to deal with. So that's the reason we picked the Cardinals. They scared me a little bit at the end, but I was like, well, at least we covered, but they ended up winning. So I was, cool. It was cool with that. Yep.
Yeah. I had told multiple people before Sunday about that pick that you had made, and I said, "Look, I'm gonna go ahead and take the Cardinals with the points." But I said, "Our guest on the show said they're gonna win outright." So I had a guy come up to me on Monday, and I'm sorry, on Tuesday, and he said, "Man," he said, "Thanks." He said, because I had a parlay, a 3-team parlay, and he said, just because of what you told me about the certainty of your guest picking and who he is, being a former NFL player, picking Arizona outright. He said, you know what? I added Arizona money line on my 3-week parlay and hit it. So it was like big high fives. Now, have I gotten any lunch or anything out of that? Not yet, but
A pat on the back, maybe.
yeah. So
A high five.
great pick.
Yeah. So we don't want to hold you long. We're grateful that you could hop on real quick to get those flowers. Any parting words? Do you want to surprise us with another pick?
I knew you were gonna ask. So I was looking at the lineup. So I guess we did college pro last time. Let's do it again. Let's go big game. Big game.
Okay.
It's only one show in town on Monday night, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna go the underdog outright. I'm gonna take Washington outright.
Love it.
Wow.
I think Alabama has better athletes than Michigan, but they got confused on some bunches. They blew a lot of coverages, right? So now Washington gets a whole week to watch that. So you're not going to surprise them. You're not going to, you know what I mean? So I think Michigan will run the ball some because they're probably a little more physical. But can they keep up with that quarterback from Washington, those receivers? Oh my God. So I'm taking Washington outright for the college pick.
Okay.
Let's keep with the rhythm of upsets.
We got it. We appreciate it, Ratcliff, and hopefully you'll be able to join us as we get into the playoffs and beyond. But
I'll give you a pro. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say a team that's playing pretty well right now is gonna rest everybody and not show up. I'm gonna say Pittsburgh beats Baltimore outright because Lamar Jackson probably won't play. He probably won't play. Why?
Okay.
They got home field advantage all the way through. Why is he playing? They gonna rest Zay Flowers. They're gonna rest, that defense. And Pittsburgh is still fighting, trying to get in.
And you let Tomlin into the playoffs.
Yep.
Anything could happen there.
Yep.
He's a winner.
So those are the two picks for this week, fellas. See how they go.
Awesome. Once again, we greatly appreciate it, Ratcliff. Thank you again. Happy New Year to you as well. And we look forward to having you back on. And trust me, you go 2-0, you're gonna have to circle back and get you back on here.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Appreciate it, fellas. Be good.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.
All right.
Wow.
That worked out.
Surprise visit.
That I know. Like, we might have to talk to Josiah about, security breaches. Like, how in the hell did that happen? Like, I thought this is a secured line that we were on.
How did he get in there?
Like, come on. This is anybody could just hop in.
He made that Washington pick over Michigan, and then it was like, well, is he going to give us an NFL pick too? And he just jumped right into it.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh and Baltimore, for Baltimore, a lot is on the line. I'm in lockstep with that as well. Like I was saying, 4-2-1 for last week's pick. And then our overall is 44, 40, and 7. Our winning percentage has crept up to 52%. So we're still rising. We're still rising. So we've been trending better over the past few weeks. So I love what we're doing. I love what we're doing. So all right. So we're in a playoff season, right at the doorstep. One of the things I wanted to start out with, Raj, is there are going to be teams this weekend who are playing head to head, where it's win or get in. But what I see are possible teams that are going to end up making it who will ultimately waste the playoff spot. And then there are teams that may not make it who would actually be more competitive. So first thing that comes to mind is the Colts and the Texans. I think the loser of that is possibly more worthy of a playoff spot than the Jags, who are playing the Titans to win the division. What are your thoughts on that game in particular?
I hear you to an extent, but on the other hand, I kind of believe that over a 17-game stretch, and the season is longer now than it used to be, I tend to think that if you have a winning record and you get in, you deserve to be there. As I look at different playoff scenarios, as I was looking at today, for instance, a team like Minnesota, people can look back at our earliest episodes this year, like week 5, I think it was week 5 and 6. We started talking about teams that had gotten off to a slow start, and we're like, who's in? Who still has a chance? If you'll remember, we both said, tossed out New England, Vikings, Denver, and lo and behold, they really are out. They
Yeah.
are gone. And we predicted that. We even predicted Cincinnati out about week 5. Now, they were going to have a little bit of a run, as they did, each of those teams, to get back into some semblance of contention. But we were right on the teams that we figured were out of the running after week 5, because there's so much history that backs all that up. They always say teams that are 0-3, teams that are 0-4 have a 4% chance of making it. If you stick by that, it's pretty solid.
So with the Steelers, going back to what Ratcliffe just mentioned, as far as Baltimore likely sitting their starters, which I do agree with the Steelers playing Baltimore in a win and get in scenario, and Buffalo going to Miami for the AFC
Yeah,
East title game,
right.
would the Steelers be wasting a spot with a scarier Bills team on the outside looking in? Because it's a strong possibility, to again Ratcliffe's point, that the Steelers could win and Buffalo could go down to Miami and lose. That's very feasible. That could happen. So do you think the better of the teams may end up not making the wild card between Buffalo and Pittsburgh?
Again, I don't think so. I mean, if Pittsburgh gets in, they have to win this week. And if they win this week, they've won 3 in a row. Again, their coach is, I think, as good as any in the game. And they will have won 3 in a row with Mason Rudolph, their third string quarterback, starting the year, coming in and taking over and putting points on the board. So I don't care if Baltimore is sitting players. If you win 3 games at the end of the year to get into the playoffs, you deserve to be there. Buffalo made their own bed within the last 6 weeks. They've come around lately, but they had a stretch there, losing games and not playing very well, and that's on them. That's on them. So they're a team that I believe has not risen to their potential. And if they don't get in, if they lose to Miami this week, they're probably out altogether. It's either win the division or lose and need a lot of help to get in.
It's crazy that they could either be, if I'm not mistaken, a 2 seed or not make the playoffs at
Yeah,
all. So that's
yeah,
how just fickle and how crazy the NFL could be. Um, Division rival stands in the way of the Green Bay Packers and a playoff berth. Are the Packers a team that could make noise in the playoffs, in your opinion? They've been looking good lately. What do you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think that their division rivals have been playing pretty well
Yes, they
lately
have.
too. So, you know, so I would be fine. Yeah, I'm not big on the Packers at all to cause any trouble, even if they find a way to sneak in.
There's a scenario that the Falcons, the Saints, or Tampa Bay could win the NFC South next week. The Falcons going to need a whole lot of
Yeah,
help, but it's a strong possibility that they
yeah,
could make win their division. It's very slim, but it's a
yeah. They could win
possibility.
the division.
My
Yeah,
question is true or false? True or false? Whoever represents the NFC South will beat the Eagles in a wild card game. Now, I posed this question a few weeks ago, and that was just
yeah.
Tampa
You
Bay.
did.
Now, with
Yeah,
the way the Eagles have looked, and it's been documented
yeah,
with the
yeah.
Cards crazy upset, the biggest upset of the year. Is it possible that the Saints and maybe a Falcon team who would be hosting could beat the Eagles in that wild card game? The Eagles who are locked in at the 5th seed.
It could if they got in, except for the fact that if Tampa wins against Carolina this week, they win the division, and those other 2 are out. So
Whoever represents the
yeah,
NFC South is my.
yeah. So I'll change my opinion a little bit from 2 weeks ago, where I said that Philadelphia would definitely beat Tampa, even in Tampa, in a
Mhm.
wild card game. But even as bad as Tampa was last week, Philadelphia was even worse, and they are on a downslide that is kind
Oh
of
my
epic.
God.
So Tampa beating Philly in Tampa in a wild card game, I don't think it's out of the realm at all.
Yeah, yeah. They're falling apart at the seams. Hate to see it. Hate to see it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot riding on this week 18, and it's so uncertain from a betting standpoint. But we have our picks. Ratcliffe has his picks as well. But before we get there, and we do have Chris Oliver coming on as well. But before we get there, I wanted to talk about two teams that are near and dear to us and off-season um, moves and implications. This has nothing to do with playoffs. Well, it kind of does. But as far as the Commanders, I know that
Mhm.
you all are at 4 wins. You all are what a third pick right now. Um, there have
Yeah.
been, and I'm sure you're hearing it through the grapevine there locally about your options for quarterback and
Right.
possibly drafting a franchise quarterback. What's the word on the Commanders and the upcoming season?
Well, there's actually some talk, and I don't know if you've heard this from the Chicago standpoint. There's actually some conjecture about, you know what? If Chicago wants to get away, move on from
Mhm.
Justin Fields, the Commanders might be a willing partner in that
Yeah.
whole scenario, to the extent that they would be willing to trade their pick to the Bears to allow them to draft, first or second quarterback in the draft, and in exchange for Washington getting Justin Fields, and then using their pick to select Marvin Harrison out of Ohio State to give Justin Fields yet another target, attractive target to throw to. So there's a lot going on. Everything's going to go crazy after the end of this weekend because so many teams that are out of it, and there are a bunch, they're going to start making moves right and left. They're going to start firing people and beginning their searches for new coaches, GMs, et cetera, et cetera.
If the Commanders don't present an attractive enough haul for Justin Fields, is Russell Wilson an option?
Everything that I've heard from around here is that there's really no big interest in going after Russell Wilson.
Wow. Wow. Well, speaking of the Bears, I think we're in such a ideal position. Has Justin Fields finally arrived? I think this game coming up with the Green Bay Packers and deciding their fate, or them deciding their fate, and us having a say in our division rival, whether or not they make the playoffs. So if we do win, he's going to play a big part in that.
Yeah,
I would assume that, like you said, you all are quarterback needy. I know the Falcons are. There are plenty of teams that are looking at the Bears, and they'll be looking at this last game to see how
sure.
Fields performs.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm the Bears, it's either we're holding on to him and we're going to get Marvin Harrison, the exact scenario you just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
painted.
Yep.
So we're going to do that, or we're going to get a crazy haul in return for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, a crazy one. So I think Ryan Poles, he has a lot of equity and a lot of decisions to make, but it's a good place to be versus where we've been the past 5 or 6 off seasons in this quarterback purgatory
Yeah.
and the failed Trubisky experiment. So I'm interested to see both scenarios and how things shake out, especially with you all getting a new coach Eberflus, it looks like he's going to be with the Bears next season, and Luke Getsy looks like he's going to hold on to his job based on the performance of Justin Fields. So
Yeah.
all is looking good.
Yeah. We'll see.
Hey, so we have a special guest. When I say special, I mean special. His name is Chris Oliver. Chris, welcome back aboard. How you doing, my friend? Thank you for your patience. I know a lot has been going on. Happy New Year, first and foremost. How's everything?
Happy New Year, fellas. Happy New Year. How's it going?
Can't complain.
Going good, but
Can't complain.
Always good to be back. Thanks for having me again.
you bet. You bet. We're coming up on week 18 now. There's so many factors with week 18 that are so much different than all the other weeks during the NFL season. There's so many things that don't even come into play the rest of the year that come into play now. You know, you got scenarios like Baltimore and Pittsburgh and who's going to play, who's going to sit, how that affects the spread. How do you see week 18 playing out? And if you were betting on the games, what would you be most looking at in terms of games that you would want to consider playing?
You hit the nail right on the head in your first comment, Raj. I mean, this week is like unlike any other that we see throughout the season. Everyone has the motivation to play for the first 15, 16, 17 weeks. But this last week is a little bit of a curveball. Do teams have the motivation to win? Do they have the motivation to not win? And then you get into player aspects. Some players have more motivation to play for things than others. From a betting standpoint, I think what you want to look for is those games that do matter on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I like to find those games where I can feel confident that both teams are going to be highly motivated to go out there, play well, play their starters the whole game, and get a win. So you guys touched on the NFC South. That's up for grabs. Everyone had something to play for there. That's probably the key matchups right there is the NFC South. Everyone's in the mix. Everyone has something to play for. You talked about a home playoff game, which is a little crazy that we still do this. We're rewarding, mediocrity, but that's the way it's shaped up right now. So I like the NFC South matchups. I think, it's after last week, I think Tampa Bay is going to bounce back in a big way. The pressure's on. They're playing a really lowly Carolina Panthers team that has nothing to play for. But I like the spot for Tampa Bay. I really think that, last week, they had already beaten the Saints earlier in the year pretty handily. It was kind of a flat spot for Tampa Bay at home as much as it can be. But this week, I look for them to bounce back in a big way.
I do too. I agree with you, Chris.
Steelers, I see you prominently have your Steeler gear. There you go. Steel City. They have a big game coming up. They are favorites on the road in Baltimore with their destiny in their hands with a little help from Miami potentially. And I know, of course, Lamar and a few of the premier players are going to be sitting. How do you feel about that game? And do you think people will be, those fringe bettors will look at that line and be like, wow, what's going on? Why are the Steelers favored by 5.5 going into Baltimore and not fully aware of what's going on with folks sitting down?
Absolutely. That's a possibility where if you just look at that game at face value, you say, what is going on here? Why the heck would Baltimore be catching points at home against the Steelers team that has been up and down every single week, it seems like? But like you said, most likely Baltimore's going to rest quite a few of their starters, definitely Lamar, probably some guys on the defense, just looking to get healthy, not to accumulate any more injuries going into the postseason, because in Lamar's era, they have struggled in the postseason. So it's all about the postseason for the Ravens at this point. But looking deeper, I think that the Steelers are going to have the advantage in this matchup. I can't believe I'm saying this, but they may have caught lightning in a bottle right now at the end of the year with Mason Rudolph. I never thought I'd speak those words, but they may have caught lightning in a bottle to make the playoffs and maybe surprise a team or two. So we shall see. But another factor this weekend is the incoming storm, possibly rain, possibly snow in the mix on Sunday. And that's a Saturday game. That's a Saturday afternoon Baltimore game. looks like we should be in the heavy precipitation at that point. So that's a factor you really got to take into consideration as well.
That's a good point. And I was looking at some weather coming across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, into Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
And there's still a lot of uncertainty about it and how big the impact is going to be. But, as you look at the schedule this weekend, other than Pittsburgh and Baltimore, can you think of any other games that have impact on playoff possibilities that could be impacted?
Well, it looks like Saturday is going to be the worst of the weather. So I think the Baltimore game might be the most directly impacted, but this is one of those wait and see approaches. There is so much uncertainty in this forecast up and down the eastern seaboard. Timing, what kind of precipitation? Are we going to see the wind? I think this is one of those weeks where you might have to really wait and see how Saturday plays out and then see who's
Right.
playing what time on Sunday to see if that's going to come into play as well.
Right. Yep.
Speaking of sitting players, so with Baltimore, you mentioned some of the premier players are going to be sitting there. Now, OBJ, I believe he has a bonus incentive that could kick in after 5 receptions. I want to say, and I'm not sure of the exact number. I want to say it's a quarter mil
I
bonus.
believe so.
Okay, so you may have some thoughts on that as far as just how that possibly relates to sports betting, as well as just some other interesting bonuses that could kick in or not get kicked in.
Absolutely, Reg. We talked about the games themselves. We talked about motivation for teams to play well or maybe not play so well. But as far as players go, there's a lot of money out there to be made this week. A few I've got here for you. 2 quarterbacks that are playing for not only their teams, but themselves a little bit. Geno Smith, $2 million if they make the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, $1 million if the Bucks can get in the
Wow.
playoffs. One I really like, and I think is a sneaky play this weekend, is the Tennessee Titans at home against the banged up Jags team. DeAndre Hopkins has potentially 1.25 million in bonuses. He needs 50 yards and he needs a touchdown to get 1.25 total. And maybe my favorite one of the whole weekend, Darius Slayton for the Giants needs one single catch for $2.5 million. One
Now,
catch, Reg, one
now
single catch.
that's interesting though, because we've seen it in past years with these individual stat, bonuses and things like this, to where upper management on certain
Oof.
teams has done everything they can to quash that from happening. Like, do not throw to DeAndre
Oh
Hopkins.
my god.
I mean, to me, that should be a legitimate complaint from the NFLPA if things like that happen.
That's not something we want to see happen. Darius Slayton, good player, good young player, deserves to get that bonus money. And I do not want to see the Giants go out there and run the ball 47 times with Saquon Barkley. Get the man a catch, get him his money. He's had a rough year. Daniel Jones has been out. It's been a bust year for the Giants. So that's one I would like to see happen. And I hope he does get
Yeah.
that one
Yeah.
single catch.
Yeah.
Now I just thought of something. So Giants are hosting the Eagles, right?
Correct.
They're on the Eastern Seaboard.
There you
Weather
go.
could play a part. So
Big
that could
part.
be the built-in excuse
Excuse-
for
yes,
why
sir.
we ran the ball 70 times and only passed the ball twice.
Right?
So I don't know. That would still be dirty pool in my opinion. I hope that doesn't happen.
But human beings play the game. And I would hope that if the coaches and the management don't have the integrity to get a throw, even a screen pass out to Slate,
Yep.
that his quarterback would have his back. It's
Whoever
like, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen.
I would think so. Whoever that quarterback may be, whether it's Tyrod Taylor, whether it's DeVito, there's
Right.
more uncertainty there. So it's just it's a major wait and see approach. I feel like this weekend for probably 75% of these football games. So it should be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Yep, you bet.
What's the action looking like? And to kind of go away from the pro game, but probably the next big football game, period, because I'm not counting these games this weekend. Well, there are some good games that are going to decide playoff positioning. but the college game, Washington um, playing Michigan. What I know there's going to be heavy action on that. What has been the talk behind that? You know, that matchup right there.
I think ultimately the playoff worked this year. I think we're getting the two best teams in college football for the national championship. Couple great semifinal games, which we have not had in years past. I was
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised with how those played out. You had the overtime Rose Bowl, which was nice. You had the near disaster by Washington, which was a little bit unfortunate. Your player gets hurt, and you have to, the clock stops. But they avoided disaster, and that's all that matters. And they are going to play for the title. Line opened at 5.5, or excuse me, 4.5. Michigan as the favorite. Looks like it might tick up a little bit. I think that Michigan is looked at in a little higher regard for beating Alabama, who was a heavy public play. There was a lot of action on Alabama this past weekend, and they couldn't finish. Something they usually do is finish, and they could not do it. So I think that that the way that played out, Michigan is looked at as the favorite, as they should be. But don't sleep on this Washington team. Michael Penix, he can get it done. He's got a lot of weapons on the outside, and if he can loosen that defense early, they could make some things happen. This should be your excellent title game.
Future Commander quarterback Michael Penix Jr.
Possibly. The Commanders will have an interesting offseason.
Yep, we were talking about it earlier. Yeah,
a lot of picks, a lot of money.
So as a Washington fan, you have to put your faith in the players that get brought in, number one. But more importantly, you have to put faith in the decision makers that get brought in. You know,
Yes.
I'm more interested in the talent and the pedigree of the decision makers that get brought in than I am the players that get brought in the first 2 or 3 rounds of the draft. Because, you know, if you got like a top 2 or 3 pick, anybody can make a big splash pick, like, you know, like any of those 3 quarterbacks at the top. And for a few weeks anyway, they'll be like, oh, that's incredible. You know, we got this guy. Oh, we're going to roll. But you don't know. So I'm more interested in what they do when it comes to trades, when it comes to players that they get rid of, and what tact they have when it comes to overhauling the entire roster, which is what I believe they ought to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you like you said, you can draft anyone in the top 3, 4, 5 picks, and they're going to be a good player. But it ultimately comes down to what do you surround them with organizationally and talent-wise. It's not just you're on the field, but it's everyone behind the scenes. It's the GM, it's the coach, it's the support staff, the training staff. That all has a major effect on how a lot of these young players develop. And I think we see that, you know, a lot of guys might not do so well in their first stop, but they move on to have good careers when they get into a better situation down the road.
Yeah.
Chris, I have one more question real quick. Providing that the Steelers were to make it into the playoffs, Mason Rudolph does play serviceable, plays excellent, whatever, gets them to win in Baltimore. Bills lose in Miami. You all are in. Kenny Pickett is healthy come wild card weekend. Who are you starting? Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph?
Man, I didn't think we'd even have this conversation, but I think that at this point, Reg, I really believe if they win this weekend and they get into the playoffs with that little bit of help they needed, as you referenced, you have to start Mason Rudolph.
Oh,
I don't see a way where you could say, you know what, Mason, you played a hell of a stretch of 3 games. You got us in. Now we're going to go back to the guy that, you know, didn't get us here. So I think for the team itself, for the continuity and for the motivation of the team and for the spirits of the team, I think you have to roll with the hot hand. The bigger question is going to be, what does this team do go into next year? That's going to be the bigger question. So we'll see how it all plays out, but looking forward to a great week 18, guys.
absolutely.
Yeah, same here. And I had one last question for you, Chris.
What you got?
Real quick one. I was talking to someone earlier today about big money lines or big point spreads moving one way or the other, like a half point or a point. And you know, sometimes, you know, big time gamblers in Vegas can have that influence to move
Absolutely.
a point spread by half or more. To sort of water it down a little bit to the individual casino, what is the biggest bet that your casino has ever taken? The one biggest single bet, and do you have a limit in terms of how big of a bet you can take?
So we don't have hard limits. Some casinos, some sports book do. They will set hard limits on money lines, on spreads, on props before the season starts, so you know where you stand. Some casinos and some sports books, like the one I'm affiliated with, we kind of go on a wager by wager basis, depending on how much liability we already have, how popular that wager is, or how obscure that wager might be. We might take more or we might take less money depending on what that exact wager is. But
Mhm.
biggest single wager in my time is always typically going to be on the Super Bowl. Last year was $250,000.
Wow. And did you take that? Did you take that bet?
You know it. No, I did, and it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but you see that around playoff and especially during the Super Bowl time. We'll see those large wagers rolling in, and those are the ones that can affect the line movements. If it's a large wager and on top of that, it's a respected player, that's when
Yeah.
you might see the line move that half a point, maybe
Yeah.
even a point, and then you throw in other factors, and you could see the line move quite a bit on these late season games and playoff games.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Chris, thanks, buddy.
Always a
Chris, we
pleasure, guys.
appreciate
Good
it.
to see you.
Appreciate it. We'll look forward to possibly getting you in playoff time. So definitely would love to get your input there as well.
Always appreciate it, guys. Happy New Year.
Yep. Happy New
See you
Year. Go
soon. Thanks,
Steelers.
Chris.
You know it.
All right. All right. Good old
Yeah.
Chris. Good old Chris.
Good show.
Well,
Isn't that some good insight?
yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. That 250,000.
Right.
Wow. Now, now, did you ask him that just so he could put your business out there, that the fact that you were the person who put the $250,000 bet down?
No, I think you got confused from, I told you previously that I made a $250
Oh,
bet.
no,
For
those
you.
damn zeros always get me.
It's zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't me.
Okay. All right.
Maybe someday.
We're gonna speak it into existence. And so it is. All right. So we got a quick subscriber question, real quick. Hey guys, Brad from Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio. He said he loves the show. He has a hypothetical. He said, hypothetically, if the Browns were to advance to the AFC Championship with Flacco, win or lose, who is their starting quarterback to open the 24-25 season? You think that's a fair question?
I think it's a very fair question. I've heard it within the last week or two. Very fair question. But I think it's Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
As an organization, you cannot fall flat on your face, after spending all that money, $240 million guaranteed, and then, with a much younger quarterback. First of all, I don't think that Cleveland is going to win the Super Bowl. I think they may win a playoff game, but when they lose, that will kind of deflate the Flacco balloon to the extent they get back to training camp. It's back to square one. Deshaun Watson is back there. Now, will Flacco, hopefully, I hope he does, get a job with Cleveland as their solid number 2 backup next year, which he would accept, without question, to make a big paycheck next year? You bet he would, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, I bet he would too. The question is, would you want, and I agree, Deshaun, hands down should be the quarterback regardless. And unless he wins the Super Bowl. If Flacco wins the Super Bowl again, then we got a serious conversation to have. But say that happening, Deshaun should be that guy. But do we really want him, Joe Flacco, lurking in the background with the clipboard, after that first or second interception being thrown in week 1, so that may not be conducive to Deshaun's progress.
Listen. If you've got $240 million guaranteed in your pocket, and you can't handle the pressure of Joe Flacco, age 39, being on the sidelines with a clipboard, then you're not who we thought you were when we paid you all that money. Okay.
Bars.
So, yeah.
Those are bars right
So,
there.
yeah. So that's
I hear
that.
you. I hear you. Big facts. All right. All right. So no, action-packed show so far. And let's go ahead and close it out with our week 18 picks, the final week of this of the season before we roll into the playoffs. The season has been chock full of backups and injuries, but a lot of excitement, and we've done well with our wagers and our bets in our picks thus far this year. But this would be probably the toughest week of the season. And watch us go 6-0, and watch us go 7-0 with Ratcliff's pick in. But let me go first.
Right.
Let me go first.
Right. Yeah.
So I have the Texans -1 at the Colts. That's a winner get in scenario. But CJ Stroud's back. He's healthy. I like them going on to another turf environment. And D'Amico Ryans, probably the leader in the clubhouse for Coach of the Year, whether they get in or not. But certainly if they get in, well, I think they're going to win one for him. CJ Stroud's going to carry them through. Texas will win outright, at least greater than 1 point. So I like the Texans -1. We talk about the Eagles and their follies and that soap opera as the Eagle turn, All My Eagles, General Eagle Hospital, you name it. It's just a whole mess over there. However, I do like them -5 at the Giants. I think if you're going to show up, this is the time to do it. You don't want to go in just dragging going into the playoffs, and you got a third or fourth string quarterback for the Giants. So I think, weather permitting, they should still win handily. So I like the Eagles -5. And then finally, I like the Bills and Dolphins under 49.5. Another game that means something. So I think they have the potential of this being a high-flying game. But over the past few weeks, both teams have been scoring under their normal averages. So I do like that trend to continue. And I like the Bills and Dolphins under 49.5. Those are my picks. Raj, your turn.
So I have to jump on Ratcliffe's pick and share it with him of Pittsburgh getting 3.5 at Baltimore. I just like the fact that Baltimore has nothing to play for. All of their best players and key starters should not be playing. And so I got to take Pittsburgh there. Tampa -5.5 at Carolina. Listen, they lost a chance last week to clinch the division against New Orleans, but I don't think it's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Plus, you got the added incentive, as Chris brought up, of Baker Mayfield having that $1 million bonus if they win that game. So show me the money, and Tampa over a probably one of the worst teams I've seen in several years. In Carolina, definitely the worst owner that I've seen in years. And I wish he would throw a drink on me.
Whoa.
But with all his money, I would like to take 1 million of it, which is like 0.1% of his net worth. No respect for that guy at all. I hope they kick him out of the league. Let me just go on that. Let me just say that. I hope they kick him out of the league and they get somebody to come in there and straighten things out. And then finally, I'll take the Raiders. Even though they have nothing to play for, you would think the Raiders -2.5 at home against Denver. Let me tell you something. The Raiders crowd in Vegas brings it every game, whether it has playoff implications or not. Secondly, that team wants Antonio Pierce back next year. And this gives them an opportunity to put the nail in that coffin to make sure that he gets brought back. If they win this game this week, and he ends up with a 5-3 record or whatever the last 8 games after he took over, I would be shocked if their ownership doesn't make him an offer to come back on a multi-year
You
deal.
hear that, Mark Davis? Do the right thing, like Spike Lee.
Do the right thing. Do it. So that's it. That's it for
Quick
us.
recap: Texans -1 at Colts. I like the Eagles -5 at Giants. Bills and Dolphins under 49.5. Roger, you and Ratcliffe's picks.
I like Pittsburgh copying off Ratcliff Thomas's pick. I'll give him full credit. Pittsburgh +3.5 at Baltimore. Again, where weather could be a factor, and that game is on Saturday. Tampa -5.5 at pitiful Carolina, and then to win the division. And Raiders -2.5 playing for their coach's job next year versus Denver in Vegas.
And let's not forget, Ratcliffe also called the Washington getting the points against Michigan. He believes that they'll win outright. I believe that they'll win outright as well. So that should be exciting as well. Any New Year's resolutions, Raj? Don't tell me not to drive 300 miles one way to the casino to place
30
wagers.
miles. 30 miles. It's 30 miles.
Those zeros,
I don't know how.
those zeros, they get me all the time.
Right. I bet $250 at a
Okay.
time at the
Not-
casino, not 250,000. I drive 30 miles to the casino, not 300. You need to, arithmetic sometimes is a tough subject for
Those
people.
zeros.
So you had a tough time with it.
On that note, thank you all again for a wonderful season. Week 18 is concluded for the DAMW, the Profits of the Profit. We're back and better than ever. We'll see you next week. Raj, peace. See you next week.
Good luck. Good luck, folks. We'll talk to you next week.